At the top of this page, you're going to put slope-intercept form. Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Perfect. Bless you. Okay, and so we're going to be looking at equations that are in this form today. Tomorrow we'll talk about how to get your equations into this form, but today they're going to be in this form. So the slope, when we have what's called slope-intercept form, because we can easily identify the slope when it's in this equation, and our slope is the m. So the slope is the m. The intercept we're actually talking about is the y-intercept. So when we talk about slope-intercept form, that's the y-intercept, and in this case, it would be b, because if we plugged in 0 for x, where it's mx plus b, 0 times n would be 0, b would just be what's left. Y would be your y-intercept. B would be your y-intercept. So the y-intercept is b from this equation right here. All right? Okay. So a couple of things we need to cover when we talk about how to use those two to graph. The y-intercept's simple. We go to that intercept and we plot the point. Then we use the slope from that point. So let's look at equation number 1. Except I'm going to erase this a little bit so I have my space. Put that up here. And B. All right, equation number 1 is y equals 3x minus 1. Lots of talking. Should be writing. So our first equation is y equals 3x minus 1. So I'm going to want you to do a couple of things. I'm going to want you to first identify what the slope is, and then also identify the y-intercept, and then we'll graph. So below here or to the side, wherever you have room, you're going to need to put m equals and y-intercept equals. Okay? You'll need to put that on each problem. So we said that the slope was whatever the coefficient or in front of x. So in this case, what is the number in front of x? 3. So that's our slope. And then the y-intercept is what's the constant term out here being added or subtracted to our x term. In this case, it's a negative. We're subtracting 1, so we're going to make that our y-intercept is negative 1. Okay, so now we're ready to plot points. So our very first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and plot our y-intercept. So y-intercept means you go to the y-axis, which is this axis, and you're going to go to the value negative 1 and plot a point. So that is about right there. There's negative 1. And then the slope is rise over run. So rise is up or down, run is left or right. So sometimes it's helpful for us to put this as a fraction, 3 over 1. And then slope is going to tell us up or down, the numerator. The bottom is either right or left. So you'll go up 3 if it's a positive 3. You'll go down 3 if that's a negative 3. In the denominator, you'll go right 1 if it's a positive 1. You'll go left 1 if it's a negative 1. So both of these are positive. So that means we're going to go up 3, right 1. So from that point that I just plotted, my y-intercept, I'm going to go up 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go right 1 from that point, and there's my point, second point that I'm going to use to graph. So again, my first point was -1 on the y-axis right there. My second point, I went from that point up 3, right 1 to plot that second point. And now you're going to connect those 2 points with a straight edge. And there's our equation. There's our graph. So we've got to identify the slope, and we have to identify the y-intercept. And who can share the slope? Tyrese, what's the slope on this one? -2/3, good. And Tessa, what's the y-intercept? 3. Okay. Remember that so we're going to, our first thing is we're going to plot the y-intercept. So I'm going to go to the y-axis and I'm going to find +3 and plot a point. So there's 1, 2, 3 right there. There's my first point to my graph. And negative means, remember the numerator means up or down. Negative would be down. So this is, we're going to go down 2. And because it's a positive on the bottom, that means going right 3. So from this point that we just graphed at 3, we're going to go down 2, 1, 2, right 3, 1, 2, 3. And there's our second point. Oh. Hold on. What was the question? So from this point, because it's a -2, we go down 2. Because it's a +3, we go right 3. And then we connect those 2 points, and we have our graph. So in equation number 3, we have y equals a -1/2 x plus 5. So we need to identify the slope. And the slope is what, Nolan? What's our slope? -1/2. And then the y-intercept, which is b. What's the y-intercept, Hadley? Okay, so we're going to go to 5 to plot that point on our y-axis. So where's 5? There it is. Okay, there's 5. Now, let's talk about this negative. When it's out front and it's not in the numerator or denominator, we get to choose then. We can either put it in the numerator or in the denominator, but we can't put it both. Because if we put it in both places, a negative over negative cancels itself and it's positive. But if we put it in the numerator and not the denominator, we have a negative over a positive, still negative, correct? Or if we put it in the denominator, we have a positive over a negative, which is still negative. So we just need to decide where we want to move this. Do we want to move it to the numerator or the denominator? Jasper, you get to choose. Where's that negative going to go? Numerator or denominator? Numerator, okay. So I'm going to erase this right out here, and I'm going to put the negative in the numerator. So it goes there. So numerator means which direction? Up or down, but in this case it's going to be down 1, down 1. And then denominator tells us left or right. Because it's positive in this case, we're going to go right 2. So from our point 5 that we just graphed, the y-intercept, we're going to go down 1 and right 2. 1, 2. And there's our second point that we're going to graph. So down 1 from the 5, right 2. Connect those. All right, I'm going to have you try this one. This is equation number 4. It is y equals a -5 4/5 x plus 7. Negative 4/5 x plus 7. So give that a try. Identify the slope and y-intercept, and then try graphing that on your own. I'm going to walk around. Okay, so slope is a negative 4/5. We're putting the negative on top in the numerator. So negative 4/5. The y-intercept is 7. So go to the y-axis, plot 7, which is right there. And then we go from that point. Abby, what do we do from that point? Down 4, right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then we connect those. All right, so what if I wanted to put the negative in the denominator rather than the numerator? What happens there? So we would go up 4, left 5. So let's see if that works. So there's my point, y equals 7, the y-intercept of 7. So that means up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I had a straight edge, that would be on my line. Okay, if I had a straight edge to use, that would be on the line. So it won't matter either way if you put the negative in the numerator or the denominator. Just don't put it in both when you're graphing. All right, let's go on to the next problem. Question number 5, our equation is going to be y equals negative 5. Y equals negative 5. You need to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Any guesses on the slope? I have 0, 5/1, 0. So another way to write this equation, do we have any x here? So we have 0x, but we have minus 5. So then our slope is 0. And we would put that 0 over 1. Because 0 over 1 is 0, correct? Okay. And then our y-intercept is negative 5. So the same steps, we will plot our y-intercept at negative 5. There's negative 5. No, that's negative 6. Whoops. Negative 5 is right there. And then numerator is 0. So I don't go left or I don't go up or down. There's no up or down. But this does tell me I'm going to go right 1. So from that point, I'm going to go right 1 and plot a point. I could go right again and plot a point. I could keep doing that. And I'm just going to get a horizontal line at y equals negative 5. Yeah, so this is just a special one. We don't have a y-intercept. There's no y here. So we can't, it's not going to cross the y-axis. This is just a special case of a line. X is always 8. So we go to our x-axis and plot the point 8. So that would be right here. And then whatever y is, x is always going to be 8. So if y, let's say y is 3, x would be 8. All of our x values will be 8. So basically we're just creating a vertical line where x equals 8. Terrible way to explain it, but that's what it is. When we have no y value, variable in our equation for a line, that means it doesn't cross the y-axis. It's only going to cross the x-axis, and it's going to cross at this point 8, that value, and then we just draw a vertical line through that. So the slope on this line would be undefined because it's a vertical line. It's undefined, which is different from a slope of 0. So let's go ahead and put that because